function and function parameters. How do we deal with function parameters and work with them, right? Next, after understanding function parameters, some new things we learned. So, what is REST parameter? How to pass different types of parameters. Now, another option, function with the return value. Why we need a function with return value? Actually, why we need function with return value means, for example, see, we are defining a function and some add, and here we are in a10 or some values like this. We are passing a comma b, and where c is equal to a plus b. Now, this is how a function is defined. Now, actually, now memory is allocated for this function. Memory is allocated for the function. In that memory, first one memory will be for function. That means for add, it will allocate memory. In that memory, it will manage the value of A and B. But what about C? You declared a variable. That means it will allocate another memory. This memory contains the value of C. This contains the value of C. That means for C, it will allocate another memory. That means now two different memories allocated. One memory for addition and another memory for result. Now, what is the problem here is this result have no relation with this memory. They are completely different. So, you are allocating multiple memories, and every memory is independent, individual. So, instead of doing this, we can try another point here. What we can do is we can create a function. We can create a function add with a b, and we can write return a plus b. Now what happens is the memory is allocated for add function. The same memory will be used for this result also, will be stored for that result also. That means a separate memory is not allocated. That means the result of a is stored under the name of add. That means add is a function and is a variable. Now add is working like a function and a variable. That means it will do the functionality and it will store the result. So we don't need separate memory to allocate for the result. Whatever result that returns, it can be stored in the C and use. It will improve the performance. This, but every time we don't want to like that. Sometimes we want memory separate for result so that we want to separately handle the result. But in this case, instead of allocating separate memory, we can use the same function memory. The memory allocated for function, the same will be used for the result. We don't need memory. So what is the meaning of return? Many times people think in a wrong way. Many times people think that return means returns value. So many times people think return means return value. Return is not returning value. It is not returning value. Actually, return is a jump statement. Na? Then how it returns value? It's statement. So return is not to return value. That means what it will do is it will perform this operation. After doing this operation, it will stop the function. It will stop the function. When it stops the function, the new memory is not allocated. Whatever memory is there for function, the same memory will be used to store the result. That means it will store the result of A plus B. Add. That means now add is actually add. We accept A comma B. It will do the functionality. Means in this case, it will do the functionality. But where the result is present in C, we have to pass add 10 comma 20 and we have to print it console.log result is in C. But here what we can do is we can simply print console.log. We can access add 10 comma 20. That means what happens? The result of A plus B, it is stored in this add. So add is used as a variable. Add is used as a variable. And in that variable, this value is stored, which you are printing. Log is printing. That means now this is a variable. In the variable, the value is stored and that value is used to print. So what is the purpose of a function with return type, return value? That means a function with a return value is used to configure function memory that can handle the operation and result, that can handle the operation and result. So syntactically we define like this. So function, the function name and parameters, and we can define return some parameter, return some parameter or value you can configure. So example, let's see how we can configure that, how we can define. Now here I am configuring the function like this. So we have a function addition. Into that function a comma b, return a plus b. Just we have to use document dot write addition is equal to. So here we have to call addition into the 2040. That means it will perform this operation and it will store that result in addition. That means addition will work like a variable. In that result is stored. That result we are printing. We are printing that result and it can perform that. It can access. Now this is used as a variable. So what is the type of this addition? The type of the addition is number, because it is returning a number. It can return anything. It can return number, string, boolean, depending on the requirements, right? So a function so can return any type of value. That means it can be primitive, 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 or non-primitive. Primitive, any type of value. It can return any type, either primitive or non-primitive. So that means even object array, right? For example, you see, suppose I am defining a function. Now we will see some techniques also for that. We will see I'm creating a function, and this function, it has to return some object. That means get products or get product. It is expecting ID. So when we access that that product related ID, then what we have to do is we can directly use like this return, and this return can do lot of things. This return can do lot of things. That means it can fetch, it can perform the operation, it can return the value and present it. Return can be any complex. That means, for example, suppose I am not giving ID, get product. You can directly define like this. We can bring it from API or we can directly return. APIs we will see in another example. So here it can return name. So it can return price. So now an function which returns a object. That means how to present it. For example, in the BR next line, for where property in what is the value get product. Remember, get product is a function which is returning an object. You see, it return is name and price, and we are printing document dot right. We are printing the property. We are printing the property, and we are the value. We are printing the property and value. That means you see, get product is a memory. In that, it is working like a variable. In that square brace, we can pass the property. We can define like this. Now this is worked for both performing the functionality and returning the result. So that means now it is going to print the details and display. So that means you can design a function to return any type of value. Example is this, a primitive type or a non-primitive type. Now, if anybody asks, you can say can return various values and change the return value according to situation. For example, if anybody asked like, can a function return number and string? Can a function can return multiple values? Actually, a function can return multiple types, but not all at a time, depending on situation. That means a function can return different types. For example, see, suppose I have a function print details. Now this function, just I will give print. Okay, print is a function. This print function should take a value. That means a value. If value is number, it should perform increment. If value is string, then it should print some hello, that value. Then can we design a function to handle different returns? Yes. What we can do is we can write a condition. If val is nan, we have is nan, is not a number. Is not a number. What is it? So if it is not a number, is nan NaN val. If it is not a number, then what we have to do, document dot write, we have to print hello and whatever the value they entered. That means whatever value is entered. If it is number, then what should happen? Value must increment by 1. Here, I don't want to print. I can just write return. Understood? It can return this message. Otherwise, perform the operation and return that value. Return that value. That means it will perform increment and it will return that value. Now you are designing the function in such a way that it can return a string or it can return a number depending on the value you pass. Can we design a function to return different types according to situation? Yes, that is possible by using. So now what we have to do, document dot write print. Into the print, I am passing some 30. So 30 is a number, then it should print 31. Suppose this is a string. So that means that is a string. It's not a number. So John, it's a string. Then it should return that string and display. That means it is not written. So see what is the problem. Console also print is NaN is not a number now. Achha, we are not verifying it. Where we are verifying some problem in the program itself. Script and all functions are gone. Okay. So it is printing the details, right? Let's run. It's printing the details and we entered some name. What is the number? Some 22 and it will return that number and it will display. So just it is changing according to the situation. Can it return various values? Yes. They based on the what type of value you are passing it can, right? So this is used to handle a functionality and the value returned by that functionality can be stored in a reference and use. Actually, if anyone asks in which situation we need this, generally we use this regularly in a situation called functions with return value are mostly used in designing services. They are mostly used in designing service. Generally, what is service? A service contains a predefined functionality with some result. Services contains a predefined functionality with some result which we can directly use in our project without writing it again and again. That is the intention. For example, let's see one simple. Suppose I want to create, you learned about string functions. In string functions, you learned we have two uppercase, we have two lowercase, but I want sentence case. Sentence case means in sentence first letter must be, but there is no function which can do like that. See, you enter your string and applied to uppercase. What it is doing, it is reading that string, converting to uppercase and returning the uppercase. It is doing a functionality and returning the result. That means this function is doing two things: converting the letters and printing them. Printing them. That means it contains functionality and result. I want to design similarly sentence case. Whatever you pass, it should return in sentence case. Let's see how to design such. I am creating now a function sentence case. Sentence case is a function, some string, str is some string. Whatever string it takes, it should return that string in sentence case. How do we convert that into sentence case? We have to use string functions. First, where we have to read the first character in string. How to read first character in string? Read the first character of string and store there. How to read the first character of string? We learned string functions now. How to read the first character? We have to read the first character by using char at. Char at. We learned string functions now. Who are these people? All these Kushal, Manikanda. We learned string functions separately. Right? Don't invent new functions now. Just recall what you have learned. Don't invent new techniques. Right? What is it? That string, an array. So how do we read string functions? String functions, we have to use string functions. That means str dot char at 0. How do we read the rest characters? All other characters from 1 to end. How to use all other characters from 1 to end? Str dot, we can use substring, am I right? Substring from which index? 1. You remembered we learned substring, substr, slice like methods. Okay. Now we have to return the first character to uppercase. Rest characters to lowercase. That is the return. That means what this sentence case will do, it will take a string, convert that into sentence case, first character uppercase, others lowercase, and store that result in this only. That means the result is stored in which location? Sentence case. I have to just print. So suppose I have var msg. Message is like I am writing message as welcome to JavaScript, something like this. Random. I will use document.write msg. I'm using document.write msg, and you can see it is printing in the same way. But I want to use that service which will convert into sentence case. Then we have to just define. So sentence case of what msg. Now it will take this value. It will do the manipulation on that value. and it will return that value. Whatever the value you have typed, it will take that and it will display. It's converted into sentence case, whatever the case you may type here. That means result of any functionality, we don't want to store in some other location. We want the same function to use. In that case, we have to manage that by using this technique. Right? This is one general example that we use like this. For example, suppose I will show you another service, how we can use some another service. Suppose we have some screen. Let's take a login screen is that, some login screen is that. This is a login screen, already some login related logic we are writing here. Already login related some logic we are writing here. Already we designed this screen, verifying username, right? Now here, what I will do is, below this, I will put here captcha. That means verify code. And I am giving a text box. Here we will give here verify code. And here we need to give a code. We need to give a code so that it can change that code. Right? I need to give a code, verify. I will do one thing. Just beside this, we will put a button. And for this button, we don't have bootstrap here. Link relation is equal to style sheet, href node modules, bootstrap icons, font, bootstrap icons.css. Okay, in this button, we have a button. So a span and a class. So we have bi and bi arrow, some arrow clockwise, counterclockwise, arrow down circle, something like this we designed. It will be like this. Arrow clockwise. What is having arrow clockwise? Okay. Clockwise. Okay, this is that. Now what I want here is this button should show a code, and here I will define a data definition. Input type is equal to text. Okay, size is equal to some 6, and here ID as code. Actually, I want that code to be displayed below. We will add some style. So data definition, so margin bottom as 10 pixel. Okay, fine. Okay. Now here I need to display a random code. I need to display a in this location. Random code, the code which is regularly changing. We need to generate a random code and display there. Actually, for that, we have some simple mathematical functions. Later, I will give you list of all mathematical functions. Here, I am writing one small function. This is giving as captcha. Captcha is a function. What this captcha function will do is, it should return a random number. It should return some random number. So how to generate a random number? Actually, we will use a variable. In JavaScript, we have a math object. This math object is used for mathematical operations. This math object can use random, which generates a random number, but only one digit number. Every time it will generate one random number. But another point is that random number starts with 0.7, but we want a number integer, not decimal fractions. Then we will multiply by 10. Then it will be 0.7 means it will be 7. It will not take a decimal one. But still, if it returns 7.8, 7.9, it should round to the nearest. We will do that. Like that, I will write here A, B, C, D, E. We are creating, so here 6-digit number. 6 random numbers, one digit random numbers. Now, we need to return. So we need to return. We need to return. We will return a single string. In this string, we have to first take math.round, round A. Why? Because this A value you can directly print, but sometimes it will come 8.9. If it is 8.9, it should be 9. So it cannot be 8.9. Round will round to the nearest. So that is like this. Like this, how many? All of them side by side. All of them. I'm keeping just one character space. Second one is space. This is C. So some space. This is D. And some space. This is E. And some space, that is F. We have to return that number. So what is the function captcha doing? Captcha function is returning a captcha. Captcha is here random number, right? Not alphabets. We are generating a random number. What should happen when function body loads, right? On load, body on load. What is it? Body load. We will write a script here, function body load. On body load, we have to get document get element by ID. What is it? Code dot inner HTML. It should display captcha. It should display captcha. This function which returns that number. Now you can see on body load there will be a number. And when I click refresh, it will get a new number. But when I click this button, it should get a new number. That's simple what we can do. You can write for this button. So for this button on click. On click, so get new. Now what should happen? So we have to write a function, get new code. The same line should execute again. Or you can put it in a new function and you can call that function instead of writing again and again. Now you can see this will get a new code and display. Every time it is getting the new code. Now when user enters, it should verify that code and say login, otherwise invalid. Of course you can do, because it is string now. It is string. Now the logic here is this, you try by yourself how we can verify. Then, but you will face one problem. The problem you will face is here, this is not a number, it is a string, some space. Now you have to read that string, remove the space. and store in one variable, and that variable compare with this text box. How to remove space from a string and store in a separate variable? What you will do? So trim is not for removing spaces in between. Trim is for removing leading spaces, na? That means spaces before and spaces after. Trim is not for removing the spaces in between. Then what you will do? You have to use split. We learned split, na? By using split, at spaces you have to split, and separate numbers will come. You have to collect all those numbers and store in a variable. After storing all in a variable, now compare the variable with this text box and verify. This technique you have to follow. That is the reason we spend so much time on string functions, array functions, because in real world lot of usage will be there. Right? Everywhere we have to work with those string functions, array functions regularly. You need to be very strong in it. Right? So this is one option. Right? This is technically, I will just give you this. You try to implement that example. This is capture. Okay. This is not capture. Capture like example I showed you. Right? Captures means it's different. They contain alphabet. These days captures contains pictures. Their captures are designed by using service techniques. Later you learn about jQuery and all. You can capture services also, right? uh, Third parties, they are third parties. You can implement those third parties. Capture is a service. You see, suppose I am using, there is Google Recapture. Actually this is Google Recapture, and you can see it says Recapture is a service, right? It's to design the captures so that they will verify whether you are a robot or human, right? Such services are designed, logics are designed by using these kind of functions. So function with return. These are all the basic examples of understanding why you need a function with a return. Can we return multiple? Can we returning on the situation? These are all the important things. That is function with return type. Next important, you need to know about another function closure. So function closure, SURE, closure. Function closure is a general small technique you used in various occasions, but logic important. Function closure means, so a function can be defined in another function. A function can be defined in another function. Have we tried this? Everywhere we are trying this, because on a button click some reusability is required. We are creating another function in a function is very common, right? But the point is the members of outer function are accessible to inner function. But the members of inner function are not accessible accessible to outer. And closure is a technique where inner function can share its members to outer function. That is the technique. Now, if you can implement the technique, that means you know how to handle a closures. How inner function related value is accessible outer, which is not actually. For example, see, suppose I will go here. We create a function. So outer like this. We have a variable msg is equal to, so outer function message, or say message from outer function, that is the message. I am giving just msg outer. Okay, and here we create called inner. This inner function is having the document dot write. It can print that message, or here I will put a variable where, so suppose msg1 is equal to msg outer. That means outer function value is accessible in inner. Now here this inner is already having some message. What is this? So message from inner, to that we are adding this message. We are adding that message. Now this message we need to use outside and print them. That means here we will put a variable. So hello, we will put a variable hello. In this, or say MSG, need to display that. That MSG1 is not accessible here because you written inside function, right? It is not accessible here. Then it's very simple. Actually, what you can do is, you can, no need of this. You can just return. You can just return this inner message, and we can use that inner directly here. What we are using, document dot write, accessing inner, that is returning the function inner. That means what happens now? The result of inner is shared to outside. It is shared to outside. And whatever outside is there, it is shared to inner. That means when I call the outer function, that means we call the outer function, it is able to print both inner and outer. So I run this here, it should able to print both message from inner and outer. So how the inner function details are accessible outside? You cannot directly access. By using this return technique only, we can do that. That means what this return is doing, it is returning the value of this inner, which we can use in the outer function, and we can handle. Actually, like this returns the inner. Understood? This is how actual closure is written. That means now what we have to do, document dot write. We have to print the outer. That means the outer memory contains the value of outer as well as inner. That means this outer is returning inner, and inner is message along with the members of outer. That means the point is same. That means it is going to return the same result. Right? So you are giving anything, suppose I said bold, and here message from outer function, inner function, it will return. This is doing the same. This technique is called closure. That means outer members are accessible in inner, members are not accessible in outer. To make that accessible, we have to use this closure technique. By using return only, you can handle that closure technique. Right? This is an example for that. That means closure is a mechanism where a function can be written inside function. So, and that value written by inner function can be used by outer function. Outer function. Remember, as I already told you, these are compulsory questions in interview. I can guarantee that out of 100 interviews you attend in JavaScript, 95 interviews will ask these questions. What is function return, function closures? So, right. So, why REST parameters, array parameters? What is the rule for REST parameters? All those are very important, right? This is function closures. Right. Another important, we have a function recursion. Recursion, function recursion, function recursions. Actually, recursion is nothing but recursion is a technique. Recursion is a technique of calling a function within the function, calling a function within the function. Actually, it is used to create macros. We use that to create macros. And macros, and we call as, this is called as batch jobs. Batch jobs. It is recursion types are used to create macros and batch jobs. What is macro? What is meant by, so batch jobs like options? Actually, for example, suppose you see MS Word. Suppose we have like MS Word. In MS Word, actually, suppose I am typing, so welcome. To this welcome, I am applying some formats. You see, I am changing the font style. I am changing the font size. I am making it bold. Some font size, font style. Okay. Making it bold, changing the color. Something I applied on it. I have another sentence. So, welcome to JavaScript. So, suppose I said, so welcome to JavaScript. I want this also in the same way. Then I think you know there is an option called Format Painter. This is button. What happens is I select this and I click this Format Painter, this button. Then what it will do is, that is highlight actually, not highlight. Format Painter is this one. So I select that, click on Format Painter. Now what it will do is, effects you given here, it will copy that. And you click on this, it will apply here. That means the sequence of work you have done, it is recorded. And the same sequence is played wherever you want. Same sequence, if I put copy paste, it will put same sentence. But send your own, only effects must be applied that. This is a kind of concept called macro. Macros are used in several other levels. So many other things are there. This is one general thing. Suppose batch jobs, that means, for example, batch jobs means, suppose I'm using, see, generally this is run, right? And actually, suppose internet people, what they do is, internet or people who are working on servers, if they want to test internet server is responding or not, they will use a command called ping -t IP address, some 127.0.0.0.1, that is our IP address. If I entered, then you can see that it requested. And fully, this ping is repeating. That ping is repeating. How many times it will repeat? Until you stop. Until you stop, this functionality is performed. That means now you learned how to write a loop. Am I right? How to write a loop which runs 100 times. How to write a loop which runs 100 times for where I0, I less than or equal to 100, I plus plus. How to write a loop that runs one day, 5 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours, forever. This is recursion. For that, you don't put much logic. Actually, very simple actually. Simple is nothing but, see what I will do here. I will open command prompt temporarily. I'm showing you a small concept, dir. It will show files list, directory, disk information. It will show files list. I want to run this dir 10 times. I will use dir, 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 dir 10. But I can keep this in one program. See what I am doing. Copy con some test job dot bat. Generally we call batch files. So here I type dir. That means it will run one time. I type another dir 2 times. Like that you say 100 times. But I write dir and after that I given test job and close. Is this technique? This technique is nothing but this test job contains dir. After dir, again the test job will run. Test job means same file will run. And the test job contains again dir. That means this will be repeating now. Let's run this and see test job. You see that dir is continuously running until I stop. Without writing any loop, how you can create such loops which can run until the condition is satisfied? This is called recursion. Recursion is a technique where we don't know how many times it should loop. We don't have end, but it should end whenever user wants it. Initially no end, but it should end whenever user wants it. If I press Ctrl C, it will stop. It will ask, do you want to terminate batch job? I say yes, it will stop. So such batch jobs are designed by using recursion technique. Recursion means a set of, means a function called within function again. In this technique, what I showed, a file is called within file. So for example, now here I am writing, so here I am writing a function factorial. Factorial is expecting an n number. Now if n is less than or equal to 1, less than or equal to 0. So n is less than or equal to 1. What it should do is it should return 1. It should stop at 1. That means this factorial should stop at 1. It should return 1 value 1. Else what should happen is we are defining n return. It should return n into factorial of n minus 1. N minus 1. Now that is the concept how we defined here n minus 1. Now actually what is this technique? So here I am writing that logic. configured like this. Yeah. Now, what concept behind this is simple. See what we are doing here. I entered factorial of 5. Then it will check, is it less than or equal to 1? No. Then here it will go to this location. It will go to this location. Here, what is happening? So here it is, n means 5. 5 into factorial of 5 minus, that means it will do two things. 5 minus 1, it will return how much? 4. And it will calculate how much? 5 into 4. That means how much? 20. And it will store that inside factorial. It will store that inside factorial. Right? It will store that result inside factorial. And this is factorial is a function which is having 5 minus 1, 4. And function means that function will execute again. That means this time when it executes, this time it will be how much? So n will be 4. N will be 4. 4 into already factorial have 20. That means it will be how much? So it will be and 80. Yeah, 80. And after that, what will happen? Not 80. What it is? 5, 4. Huh, huh. After that, what it will do is, it will take the value. How much it will take the value? It will again return what? Factorial. This time it will be 4 minus 1. 4 minus 1 will be how much? 3. That means gradually it is decreasing and it is multiplying 5 into, so 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, and it will stop at 1. When it is equal to 1, it will stop at 1. Right? So, and 5 fours, 20, 20 into 3, 60, 60 into 2, 20, 120, and at stop. And remember, no loop, nothing. We are not using any looping here. Without looping, we are performing this operation. Many times these kind of tasks are given to you. They say that without loop, do this and show. We don't need a loop. Don't use a loop. That means they are testing your recursion techniques. Do you know recursion? Because without loop means recursion. Right? Recursion means inside the function is called again. This is the function, right? Inside the function, we are calling the function. Generally, we call a function outside the function. If a function is called inside the function, its intention is recursion. We use the recursion technique. That means here we will write an example like example. So here we will put document.write. Here we will say 5 factorial is 5 factorial is, here we will define factorial of 5. That means it should calculate that factorial and return. Right? You say, suppose the value, that is suppose 6 factorial is 6. You pass 6. Then it will return that and display. This is used to handle various operations. Right? If you cannot handle these kind, forget about interviews. So these are primary things. For fresher level, these kind of tasks are very much asked. Especially for the people who put with the background of BTech, MCA, right? For them, these kind of questions are more asked. They think these people are genius. Already genius, they think. And they give more complex questions because because engineering, like people are applying for UI developer jobs, they think these are very genius people, then we can't ask them small questions, very complex things we have to give them, because already his background is engineering. An ordinary graduate applies for UI developer, they will not ask this much complicated, they will simply ask designs, because they already know that his brain is only graduate level. But at engineer level, PG level, you put background. Once they see background, that means now you will get complex questions. That is the reason, depending on this, because it is not even fair to ask general graduates all these complex logical questions. MNCs will ask, and MNCs will ask these kind of questions even for experienced people. That means how to find out a word palindrome or not. How to find out a word palindrome or not. These are general questions like you will learn in basic C programming skills. When you learn C programming and all, people teach you like this. How to find factorial, how to find sum of this, how to find sum of that, how to find power value, so ratios and all this. But in UI technology, you may be wondering why people they ask. In UI technology means website designing, na? Why they ask all this? For freshers, they ask, especially for the people with the background of such BTech and MTech and all. Right? Why? Because they logically need to be perfect, and they think that they are already logically perfect. They should know this kind of programs. We have seen for experienced people also these questions are asked. For experienced people also, and people who are attending high level interviews on JavaScript like Angular, React, for those people also these kind of questions are asked to test their JavaScript skills. What is recursion, how recursions are used, examples, right? And they give some programs to show them how recursion is used, right? This is one simple technique of using a recursion, right? How we can work with that. Function have so many things: function parameters, function return, and function closures, and function recursion. Another important, anonymous function. Anonymous function. Anonymous function is nothing but function without name is known as anonymous function. Anonymous function. Function without name. Where you used it? Already we used it. Anonymous functions. Anonymous functions. Anonymous, yeah. Anonymous functions are used in already you learned. Where you learned anonymous functions. Anonymous functions are used in callback. Already we discussed, na? Callback functions don't have name, right? Directly we can have an anonymous function. For example, you see, anonymous function means we can write a function so without name. So document dot write, suppose document dot write, so welcome to JavaScript something, and you see this is an anonymous function without name, then how to call it? If you are writing a separate anonymous function, then you have to enclose this function in a curly brace. You have to enclose this entire function in a curly brace. This is anonymous. And how to call that anonymous function? Just beside it, you have to use empty curly brace. That is to call the anonymous function. Wherever you are seeing people using this, that means an anonymous function is called. An anonymous function is called. Without that, function is defined. Function is defined, but it is not called. You can see it's not working. To call, we have to use this parenthesis. We are calling the function and it returns. This is anonymous. Generally, why we use anonymous already I showed you. There is another technique here. Suppose I am creating a function as function empty. What it does, it returns. So it returns, for example, suppose some object. It returns some object, name as TV and price is equal to some this. We generally use to do some functionality and return some values. Now you can store this under a reference of some product and store like this. This is anonymous. Now what is product? Is it function name? It is not function name. It is just the name allocated in the memory. In that memory, this functionality is managed. That means we don't want to allocate a separate memory for function. We want to just use the variable memory for doing the functionality. In that case, we will use anonymous. Because if I give a separate name for function, separate memory allocated for it. I don't want like that. I can use the result of this in this now. That means we are just using document.write. What is it? Product.name. I'm just printing that product.name. It should print that name. So what is it? That is a variable function. It is returning an object, right? And object is returning, actually it is returning name, string and number. So what we have to do? So we have to perform an operation on that and return it. That means this product is not directly returning that. So document.write, I say product. What is this product? Product, it will return as an function, right? This is a function, right? That means this product is a function. That function return should be, function means we have to call it in this way. This function return will be returning name. That means it is having a property called name. That is the function with return name. Then it will get that and display. Because you configured it as a function, we have to call it like a function. And we are calling like a function, and that function is having a property called name. It will return. That means we don't want to use a separate memory. We want to use the same memory. For that, we can use this. Generally, we use most of this for callbacks. Already I showed you in a function, parameters are defined with no names for functions. They are callbacks. So function can be anonymous. Next important, another is you can have arrow functions. Arrow functions are very modern and advanced. So in the modern JavaScript, arrow functions are very popularly used. Now what are arrow functions? We will see in next session, right? Arrow functions are very much used, advanced in modern JavaScript. That means if you go further, Angular, React like technologies, people write using arrow technique, shortcuts. And what is arrow? We will see in the next session. Okay, right? Next session tomorrow, we have again holiday. Tomorrow Ramzan, right? We have holiday again. Our session will be on Wednesday. Okay, we will continue on Wednesday. Huh?